This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Welcome, everyone, as we start our second week of Orchos Chaim lha'Rosh, as we go back 1,000 years in history to one of the giants of the Rishonim, the Rosh, who is taking us through step by step a guide to a more successful way to live our lives. And we're sponsored by Yoel Klugman and family, Lili Nishmas, Mishulm Ben Moshe, and Chav Bas Yudah Kohen Klugman. L'Refuah Shalema and also for the successful shidduchim of their children. L'Refuah Shalema for my Rebbetzin, Miriam Liba Bas Devora, and Chaim Ben Rachel. They should have a L'Refuah Shalema B'Sech Sha'achil Yisrael. Today, we learn number 17 and number 18. And as I said, it's in order to live a Jewish life, one has to realize, B'chol drachecha da'ehu. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. That means that there's no area of life that is not guided by and directed by the Torah. Even the way we behave in the bathroom. And here, as we'll see today, these next two ideas are in very interesting corners of our lives. In number 17 is there's a lot of speculation of what exactly the Rosh is referring to. Shelo yisoid b'sudas harishus. Now, literally, this would mean that one should not partake of an optional meal. Now, that's difficult. I mean, we know there's a Sudas mitzvah, but you can't have a Sudas mitzvah every day, every meal. You don't have a bris every day. You don't have a siyum. You don't have a chasana. And if you don't, you shouldn't eat. Of course, that's not true. A person's supposed to have pas shachris. Right? If you're a Rav Elyashiv, so then you can have a bris every morning. But otherwise, it's not talking that you should go wedding hopping. That's not what it means. So one idea, which is suggested by the Makar Chaim, is that Rishus over here means amongst government. Like it says in Pirkei Avos, Al tisvada l'rishus. Don't cozy up to the leaders, the secular leaders, because they only use you when they need you, and when they don't, they discard you, and that could be dangerous. We see people, even very high in the political arena, have forged for themselves many enemies, and it's a veritable minefield. So that's one suggestion. Shelo yisoid b'sudas harishus. I know it feels good to be amongst the bigwigs, but if you don't need it, stay away, because trouble is lurking there. That's one approach. Another approach is, and this is people that write commentaries on Orchos Chaim lha'Rosh, Talmidei Chachamim, they refer you all the way to number 120, to Kuf Chaf, where the Rosh says, Al targul atzmecha lechol chutz mebeischa. Don't get in the habit of eating out of your home, im kibbutz harba, with a big group of people, shaloi b'sudas mitzvah, unless it's a sudas mitzvah. In other words, don't go to many parties. And perhaps that's what the Rosh means over here. The Rav Chaim Kanievsky in his Sefer Hasham Orchos on Orchos Chaim says that there's another nusach over here, Besudas HaKibbutz, a Suda of gathering. In other words, don't go into a group of people, eat at home. Not with a group of people, unless it's a Sudas Mitzvah. There's another Nosach Sudas Hagdolim. Now, what does this mean? It means that eating with people is fraught with danger. When a husband and wife go out and eat with a bunch of couples, it sounds like a nice thing. But the husband notices that his friend's wife is much more attentive to him, looks at him nicely, is concerned if he wants to leave. And then he looks at his own wife, and she hardly glances at him. And she doesn't care what he thinks. And then he says, I got stuck with a lemon. Or even worse, he transgresses the 10th commandment of Lo Yisach Moedeishes Re'echa. I wish I was married to her. That's dangerous. So, if it's a Sudas mitzvah, so when you go to a Sudas mitzvah, there's a protection. Shemer mitzvah lo yada davara. Going for a Sudas mitzvah. But if it's not a Sudas mitzvah, stay home. Be careful. You go out amongst people, and then they start talking, and you like to be the belle of the ball, so you start telling stories, and you want to give yourself a bigger role in the story, so you start lying. Midvar sheker tirchak. Well, you start saying something about what happens in your house, and in the process, you're embarrassing your wife, and she's sitting there and falling through the floor that you're telling that story in public. And you're having such a good time, and you don't notice that she's mortified. So eating out with a bunch of people, the Rosh says, this is written 1,000 years ago, says, don't make a habit of it. You should know that this is even true when inviting company into your own home. Yes, I know there's a mitzvah of achnos zorchim, but you have to be very careful. You invite a couple to your house. Your wife is starving for your attention the whole week. Comes Friday night, she's looking forward to talk to you, but you invited another couple, and you're talking to the husband the whole time. And she's not exactly friendly with the other woman, so she's sitting there, steaming and stewing that you're talking to him, and she's getting ignored. Even worse, if you're talking to the other woman, to the other wife, and there's a chemistry between you, and your wife is looking daggers. Now, there's also the children to be concerned about. Today, we have very little time for our children. You invite company to your table, and instead of spending the last bastion of time, the Shabbos table with your children, you end up talking to your guests. So it's something that needs to be very, 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 very weighed. Have to spend time with your family. Now, in number Yud Ches, and we wonder if there's a significance that we talk about Torah in Chai. Yud Ches is Chai, and of course, Chayim Heim L'Moitze'ayim. Torah is life to those that find them. Right? So it would make sense that he would talk about Torah in life. It's Chayim Hi L'Machazikim Ba, Ki Heim Chayenu V'Orech Yameinu. So, although I didn't see anybody say it, but it must be significance that for the number Chai, he chooses to talk about Torah. And he says, Shelo Yisiach Sicha B'Teila. You shouldn't engage in idle chit-chat. Now, this is actually a medrash. In Kriya Shema we say, V'dibarta bam, you should speak about them. That means Torah, v'loi b'dvarim b'telim. Bam is a limitation, is a miyut. V'dibarta bam, v'loi b'dvarim b'telim. Speak about Torah. We are taught by Chazal that a person has, we think that we have as many words as we want, until 120. We are taught that a person has a finite amount of words, and when those words run out, unless they're words of Torah or mitzvahs, then the person goes to the next world, until its proper time. So the Rosh tells us, you know what? Don't just plepel away. I remember a Miller used to say that he still had a Rebbe who thought before he said anything. He used to pause, and he said nothing came out of his mouth until he thought about it first. People that are in the know say that Rav Miller was referring to Rav Isaac Sher. Zichron Levrach, Zchus Yogan Aleinu. We don't just talk for talk's sake. Now, of course, we could relax. If a person has a problem, speak about it to a friend, that's okay. Daga b'lei vish, yasichenu la'acherim. We could talk to do a mitzvah. Talking to parents is a mitzvah. Talking to a spouse is a mitzvah. Talking to our children is a mitzvah. We could plan to do mitzvahs. There's so many things to talk about. But idle chit-chat, talking just for talk's sake, that the Rosh says, don't forget what life is all about. And especially since it's speech that defines our very essence. It says that man was created l'nefesh chaya, a spirit of life, and the Targum says l'ruach memalula, a spirit that speaks. That's how we are different than animals, the koyach of speech. And therefore, says the Rosh, don't waste it. Use it for divrei Torah. And then the Rosh says, "V'yizar lilmoid b'layla," and be careful to learn in the night. At sheyoshen mitoich divrei Torah, fall asleep with thoughts of learning. V'loi mitoich sicha b'teila, and not in the midst of idle chatter. We know that sometimes a person just doesn't lay down in bed, hit the pillow, and go to sleep. He needs to unwind and drift off into sleep. So the Rosh says, drift off in thoughts of Torah. As a matter of fact, Rav Chaim Kanievsky in his Sefer Hasham Orchos and the Makar Chaim, they say that this means that one could learn even after saying Hamapel. Just b'machshava, not b'peh, in thought. But even after making the bracha, Reb Chaim Kanievsky says it's not a hefsek. That's what the Rosh is saying. Drift off mitoch divrei Torah. That means even after the bracha of Hamapel. Now, of course, the Rosh is not talking about here a married man that is going to sleep at the same time with his wife. He shouldn't be learning then. He should be talking to his wife. The Torah says, the davak be'ishtay. One should cleave to one's wife. A wife looks forward to talking to her husband before she falls asleep. So the Rosh is talking over here when a man lays down and his wife is already sleeping, or his wife is busy with the baby, or he's talking about a yeshiva bacher, an unmarried man. He's not talking about a married man. A married man should be talking to his wife and asking her how her day was, and talking to her about the children, and perhaps what she's going to do during the week. She should be talking to her husband about how things are at work. There isn't much time for couples today to bond. They're busy with the children, they're busy with carpools, they're busy with shopping. The husband is going to learn his daf yomi or his dirshu shir. He's working on preparing for his job for the next day. She's doing the laundry. She's laying out the children's clothing. She's preparing the snack, getting the food ready. They don't have much time to bond. The time they have is in the night. And therefore the husband should be speaking to the wife should be speaking to the husband. The Rosh over here is talking about if the wife is already sleeping. But otherwise, that's a special time between husband and wife, and that ensures that the Shekhinah should be in their home, and that the bedroom is Kodesh Kodashim. As always, we want to thank you for joining us in the Rosh's guidance to life. If you would like to sponsor next week's Haggadah share, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Thank you for joining us, and have a truly wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.